You're watching the Hulsey Chapel CME Church television ministry with Pastor Jamie L. Capers. We hope that today's program will be a blessing to the hearer and doer of God's holy word. Now, here's our pastor, Jamie L. Capers.
In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, look at verse 23, verse 22 and verse 23. The King James Version says, "And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hand on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live." Look at verse number 41. "And he took the damsel by the hand and said to her, Talitha cumi," which is being interpreted, "Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years, and they were astonished with a great astonishment." That's it right there. Come on, repeat after me. I speak life. I speak life. Y'all pray for me, because I don't know what God's doing. But I speak life. I speak life. I speak life. Sometimes, my brothers and sisters, the tragedies of life can push us to a point of desperation. Sometimes we find ourselves as though we are locked or chained by life itself. Sometimes everywhere we look, it seems like there is something that is detrimental to our advancement or our relationship with God. And sometimes there are events that occur in our lives that basically say to us that our lives are over. It says to us that there is no more good that can come out of us. It sometimes say to us that we are not destined for greatness, but we're destined for something that is something that can take the very life out of us. Sometimes a life can say to us, my brothers and sisters, that there is no hope for tomorrow. And I want to tell you that we don't have to remain there, because the reality is the situation can push us there, that we can say that. But the reality is that we don't have to accept it. We don't have to settle for the tragedy. We don't have to settle for what the tragedy may have brought us. We don't have to settle for the backstabbers and the haters, and we don't have to settle for the unemployment. We don't have to settle for the no good folk who mess with our children. We don't have to settle for the people who speak against our church. We don't have to settle for those things, because we must remember that God has given us hope through Jesus the Christ. And every now and then we must be reminded of that hope that rests in Jesus the Christ. Every now and then our minds take us back to a place. Our minds take us to a place far from God. And sometimes we find ourselves questioning God on a consistent basis. It's nothing wrong with saying, God, why am I in this situation? But sometimes life can push us to the point that we can even question the very existence of God. And everybody around us is praising God. Everybody around us is worshiping God. Everybody around us is giving a testimony about the goodness of God. And here we are sitting in the midst of turmoil. Here we are looking around us and we're sitting in complete darkness. Here we are sitting and looking around us and everybody else is prospering. And it seems like we are sitting in a cell locked up by life itself. And so here it is now in this particular text that Jesus is coming through, and here comes Jairus, who it says a ruler in a synagogue. In other words, Jairus has a great position. He is of high esteem. He is very respected. But what happens is Jairus' daughter, it lets us know that Jairus says that his daughter is what? His daughter is at the very point of death. And Jairus, who is a ruler of the synagogue, who is very, very well respected, again, who has a position, and whenever we get a high position, we think that we don't have to worship. We think that we don't have to praise. We think that we don't have to bow down. We think that everybody will bow down to us. But I tell you, you live life long enough. Whenever you get in a desperate situation, you will find yourself forgetting about who you are, where you come from. You realize that I need God, and I need God right now. And here is Jairus his daughter is at the point of death, and it lets us know that his daughter is at home. That means Jairus has to make a trip. That means Jairus has to leave his home. Sometimes you have to leave a place in order to get your blessing. You have to leave your home in order to get a breakthrough. You have to leave some folk behind in order to get to the man who's able to heal you and to set you free. Sometimes you have to make a journey, and on the journey you may have some difficulties. On the journey you may trip over. On the journey you may fall down. On the journey you may have some folk who want to turn you back, but you've got to be like Jairus, that you've got to find your way to Jesus. And so Jairus comes and he bows down to Jesus. He bows down. He says, I pray thee, come and lay thy hand on her, that she may be healed and she shall live. Here it is. Jairus is specific about what it is he wants. We mentioned last week, sometimes we don't know how to articulate it, but sometimes in other situations we find ourselves that we say to God the very thing that is wrong with us, or the very thing that we are dealing with. Maybe it is that it's his daughter that's at the point of death, and the burden is still on Jairus, but because he's coming on behalf of someone else, he has the mindset, the ability to articulate that what he needs. Because sometimes when you are in the situation, sometimes when you are in it, you can't articulate it. But sometimes when you're coming for somebody else, the burden is lighter. And so here it is, he went to Jesus. And while Jesus is on his way to Jairus' house, while Jairus is knocking on the door of Jesus, here comes a woman with an issue of blood, and she comes up and touches Jesus on the hem of his garment. Sometimes, my brothers and sisters, when it seems like you get to God, when it seems like you're at the very point of your breakthrough and your miracle, it seems like somebody gets in your way. I don't know about you, but sometimes it just seems like folk just get in the way. Sometimes it seems like folk just seem like they just messing with you. I know this woman wasn't messing with him, but sometimes it seems like folk know you need something from God, and they just messing with your mind. But Jairus was very adamant. He did not leave. Sometimes you got to wait it out. Sometimes you've got to wait your turn. Sometimes you got to wait until God says it's over. Here it is, my brothers and sisters. Remember again, I said he waited right there. Sometimes, again, you will be in a position, that it seems like God is not moving, but you've got to trust in God. If God said it, then God will perform it in your life. I believe that God is able to do all things, and because I believe that God is able to do all things, I'm going to wait right there on the Lord. With everything I got inside of me, I'm going to wait on the Lord, and I will be of good courage, because I know if I'm going to get my breakthrough, if I'm going to get to the place that I want to get to, I gotta wait it out. And sometimes it will be some long nights, but whatever you've got to do, you better stay right there and wait on the Lord, because he is able to do all things. So when Jesus heals this woman, then he turns his attention back to Jairus. And it seems like sometimes God has forgotten us. It seems like God has left us on an island by ourselves. But here it is that Jesus turns his attention back to Jairus. I don't know who you are in this place right now, but I believe that God is saying he's turning his attention to you. Why? Why is it that God would turn his attention to Jairus? The reason that Jesus would turn his attention to Jairus is because Jairus was willing to worship. Jairus was willing to wait it out. And if you are willing to worship and honor God and wait it out, God will turn his attention to you. And some of us in this place right now, we've been waiting on God. We've been standing in line saying, God, when are you going to bless me? God, when is my time coming? God, I've been praying to you. I've been crying out to you. I've been lifting up my children to you. I've been unemployed and I've been crying out to you. God, here am I. I'm waiting on you. Bless me any way you know how. And so Jairus was so desperate, so willing to worship, that he got the attention of Jesus. Sometimes you've got to do some radical stuff to get the attention of God. And so now, when you look at verse 36, verse 35, they come and they say, thy daughter is dead. They come and they say, thy daughter is dead. Can you imagine? Jairus has made this journey to Jesus, and they bring him word that his daughter is dead. He's been waiting on Jesus. He came to Jesus and he bowed down and he prayed to Jesus. And they come and they say, your daughter is dead. Sometimes what happens is that you will get word that makes your heart even heavier. Let me say that again. Some of us didn't catch that. Sometimes when you're going through, you'll get a word that makes your heart even heavier. They say your daughter is dead. Jairus could have just said, forget it. He could have just said, Lord, my daughter's dead. Let us go bury her. But Jesus says, be not afraid. Only believe. That's a word for some of us right now. Do not be afraid. Believe. Look at somebody and tell them, believe. Now tap yourself on the shoulder and say, believe. It's not over. It's not over. I don't know what it is, but this morning I just felt a weight that came over me. And God is saying it's not over. It's not over. Some of us in this place right now, you can't give up. I know you've been praying about it. You've heard some great sermons and you went back, everything's going to be all right. But then you come back and the same stuff